Top of the morning, everybody. Mike Myers with a production of the Five P's and me. Coming at y'all with this segment entitled If I Can Get Mike Myers to Think. However, I go back to the saying of if I could get my people to think, they would save themselves. It was an old saying by Harriet Tubman. She was trying to get the slave mentality of the slaves out of their minds so they could think and begin to come up out of that slavery subjection. However, I just want to go by saying a prayer saying, if I can get myself to think clearly, you know what I'm saying, I would save myself. I go on to say that over my years, I had been having a foggy, staticky thought process all over the place with it. Thinking that if I did it this way or if I did it that way, it would get me to home base, and it get me to, cool status. However, just like, man, I was thinking erratically, errant thinking, keeping me in a state of non-growth, so to speak. If you go back to them days, remember them rabbit ear antennas with the little fine tuning knob in the middle. If you wanted to watch TV back in the day, you say you wanted to watch a particular program, you had to fine tune that joint, man, to try to get a little bit more clarity. You know what I mean? Of course, it was some static level, but it was enough to see the show and get the entertainment you wanted out of it. You know what I mean? But you find yourself putting the antenna over here, or you put it over there, all over the place, till you got that clear picture. Find out the next day the frequency, the mood, that you ain't got that clear picture no more. That's the way I was doing, man. I was trying to figure out, wayward thinking, the way to go, man, and it just wasn't working for me, man. So at a time, man, I've been going, just figuring, still not coming up with the right answer, you know what I'm saying? So, it took me some years to develop, finally get a clear understanding of where I was going. However, when COVID hit, man, it changed the world, man. It brought some of the most creative individuals, it produced some of the most creative individuals, to where, they brought up business ideas, the food truck industry, the daycare industry, di- remotely working from home type stuff, DoorDash and Instacart, it's all these ideas was concocted, you know what I'm saying? And people was just, you was forced to bring out their creative mindsets to where, because at the time, it was just, the world was at a standstill. And it being at a standstill, you go to work thinking like, I got to come up with something to do constructive, you know what I'm saying, to keep me from going crazy, so to speak. Because it sent a lot of people in the middle, middle was just like, just torn apart, man. When, couldn't think like, wow, what am I going to do type stuff. So, but at that point in time, man, COVID happened to me. I ain't gonna say I was affected by the sickness itself, but it helped me think more clearly. It brought on a demonstration to where, a book was handed to me and I read it with everything in me to understand, it allowed me to switch from that antenna mentality where I was all over the place trying to fine tune things to where it allowed me to start, seeing with clarity, thinking with clarity. You know what I mean? I could see the picture, the big picture that was meant for me. With that being said, that was, I don't know if that was a definitive moment for me, but I know it was a blessing in disguise because I was able to see that if I could just put a little effort and action and the principles that I was internalizing, I would begin to bring myself out of the hole that I had been in for years. You know what I mean? Again, man, the COVID, wow. Like I said, it revolutionized the whole atmosphere of living to where people begin to see and do different than what their lifestyles had entailed before, And again, me personalizing it, man, it just, like I said, it allowed me to see clearly, what I mean? No longer having to tune that baby, you know what I mean? And then again, when I was tuning that antenna, man, it was still foggy, it was staticky. I'm like, it had me doing it, with distortion. I'm thinking this was, a good avenue to travel when in fact it was the wrong avenue to be traveling. You know what I mean? So, again, man, I just want to say that you know, when I sat up there and began to go into high definition mode, man, I seen that Mike Mines definitely can be better, man. He could do better. That, you know, it's not all about just him, that people matter to where it didn't it, before, it was all about me, you know what I mean? Careless to say that, I wasn't given a damn about, what somebody else might have been going through, But like I said, that attitude has changed, man. Man, it allowed me to be more, like I said, compassionate towards, just the human nature, period, man. I want to go, again, man. If I could teach myself to think, man, if I could get myself to think with clarity, man, ooh, wait, the results, are insurmountable, and again, like, I'm happy, with where my direction is going now, you know what I'm saying? To whereas I was unstable, shall I say, when I was in that antenna mode. Didn't know where I was going, didn't know how I was gonna get there, didn't have no plan, didn't properly prepare, But now everything is done methodically, I ain't gonna say it like I said, I'm not perfect. I'm still human, I'm making mistakes, but they ain't the mistakes that added up to the results I received from that errant mode of thinking back 10 years ago, back 20 years ago, back 5 years ago, four, what I mean? However, the point is, I'm able to, see clearly now, and it gives me the opportunity to, move forward progressively, to keep it 100 with myself. You know what I'm saying? That shit is over. All that I've been through, it's over, man. It was a learning lesson, a lesson that I learned to get me, from point A to point B to point Z, from stepping stone one, stepping stone two, stepping stone three, you know what I mean? Advancing me towards progression, man. So again, man, I don't know if COVID came as a blessing to me, but it came at a time in which transitioned me from the former to the present. You know what I mean? Getting me to understand that, man, everything you do, man, you must plan and prepare for it. You know what I'm saying? So in essence, I'm saying, man, when we think clearly, boy, how we can reap the benefits, once we put the effort, forward towards action to receive the production of our fruits. You know what I'm saying? That was planted, man, or the seed that was planted. So, you know what I mean? I just wanted to, lay that on you, man, because I could go on and on explaining, well, why didn't you do this? Well, why did you do that? You know what I mean? Well, forget the whys you did it. What did you learn from it? Did you grow from it? You know what I mean? And all the lessons I learned, yeah, yes, oh yeah, it allowed me to grow, But again, I had to come from beyond that old stinking thinking. You know what I'm saying? So, and that, like I said, it's a process, man, and I've learned to understand that, everything has its season, and if it ain't right for the season, RIPE, ripe for the season, then it ain't ready, man. You don't want to take the cake out too early, man. Or it might fall, it might be gummy. You stick that toothpick in and it ain't ready. Got to put it back in. Well, that's me. I had to go back in that oven quite a few times for me to develop into the dexterity of the of the the I'm sorry, of the bake. You know what I'm saying? So it can come out moist, so it can come out delicious, so it can come out. You know what I'm saying? In a savory state. And that's what it took for me, man. It's a thinking process, man. The thinking, with clarity. I mean, high def nowadays is what everybody going into with their TV. So, you know what I'm saying? Why not high def your mentality? Think with clarity, do with clarity, be with clarity. So you are not misunderstood in how you proceed, So again, this is just a small demonstration of me preparing to, give back what I learned, give back, what I was taught to give back, my experiences, that helped me move along, or those who helped me move along. I got to get back to it so someone else can eat off of it, But in essence, man, I just want to say, it's been a process that a learning process, that helped me see, a little bit more clear than what I did years ago. So, I hope this was a help to one of y'all. It was something you can partake of and, move forward in your life with. You may be going through, but again, I'm just out here trying to pass it on to the next person. I thank you for your time and hope this was beneficial for you as it was for me, man. It's been a production of the 5 P's and me, Mike Mines. I'm out.